3 a.m. The shocking truth behind killing gods who whisper deals they kneel before me forever. The clock struck 3, as if the universe itself had decided to keep its darkest secrets hidden in these eerie hours. Shadows crept along the walls, twisting like phantoms, and a strange electric energy filled the air. Something was happening. Something the world wasn't ready for more than just whispers floated through the night. It was the sound of ancient beings, gods, maybe enticing the curious, offering dreadful twisters of fate in exchange for fealty. A cold sweat dripped down Jeffrey's back as he felt the presence of something sinister creeping closer. Just earlier, he stumbled upon an old book in the dusty corner of an even dustier thrift store. The cover was leather, cracked and peeling, with mysterious symbols that seemed to dance under the flickering light. Inside, pages were filled with frickin' rituals and stories of those who had bargained with the unseen, only to be left broken and alone. The weight of the book in his hands was heavy, almost suffocating. Was it just paper, or was it imbued with secrets best left untouched? As he pored over the text, his heart raced. There were accounts of mortals who claimed to have struck deals, gloating about the power they were granted, only to vanish into thin air, leaving echoes of their terror behind. And now, here he was at 3 a.m., wondering if he might be next. A chill ran down his spine, pulling him deeper into paranoia. Had he awakened something in that dusty old store? Was he now a pawn trapped in their game? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The wind howled outside, rattling the window as if in warning. He tried to shake off the dread, but something deep inside him knew he was caught. Just then, the air shifted, an icy whisper brushed against his earlobe. Power comes at a price. It lingered. What did that even mean? The words crawled beneath his skin, igniting thoughts of greed and ambition he never thought he had. Did he dare invoke the gods and risk it all, or was he meant to stay in his mundane life, untested and unnoticed? As he stared into the darkness, a figure loomed just beyond the threshold, barely illuminated by the dull glow of his lamp. His heart nearly stopped. Was it a trick of his mind, or had he really called forth the very gods he read about? It took a deep breath, the kind that felt too heavy to take, to step towards the figure. What if they weren't just illusions? What if they were ready to strike a deal? Would he dare step into that darkness, or would he run screaming back to safety? His mind raced with questions as the figure's shadow lurked closer, leaving just one burning thought: who was kneeling now? The figure stepped into the faint light, revealing itself to be a woman pale as moonlight, hair cascading like a silver waterfall. Her eyes gleamed with an unnatural light, deep as the abyss, drawing Jeffrey in with their hypnotic pull. "You called," she said, her voice smooth and enveloping, like velvet wrapped around steel. Jeffrey's heart pounded against his ribcage. Was this real? Or another twisted illusion conjured by the book? "I didn't call anyone," he stammered, forcing himself to sound more defiant than he felt. She smiled, a chilling curve of her lips that hinted at secrets untold. "Not yet, but you have awakened a hunger within you, a desperation for purpose." The ground beneath Jeffrey seemed to shift, the air thickened, and whispered others' voices he couldn't quite catch. "Who are you?" he managed to ask, fighting the urge to flee. "I am a servant of the Forgotten Ones," she replied, every syllable slick with promise. "You seek power, don't you? Strength that transcends the mundane life you lead?" Jeffrey swallowed hard. His mind flooded with images. The dull office job, the petty arguments with coworkers, and the aching sense of unfulfillment. What if he could escape all that? What if he could rise above it? I want more," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Hope and fear tangled in his chest, forming a chaotic fusion of desire. "Then we can make a deal," she said, stepping closer, her presence electrifying. "But remember, the price is steep, and not all who bargain can pay what is required." "Just tell me what I need to do," he replied, Surprising himself with his own boldness, she tilted her head, a slight grin dancing on her lips. You must offer your essence a fragment of your very soul. In return, the power will be yours to wield. But understand this. Once you enter the pact, there's no turning back. You will awaken more than just abilities. The gods who have long languished will rise at your bidding. A voice inside Jeffrey screamed for him to run, to hide from this temptation. But another, the darker side, the part he never knew existed, called him forward, whispering sweet nothings of ambition and success. Could he really do it? What happens if I refuse? He challenged, though part of him already knew the answer. The light dimmed as she arched an eyebrow, revealing the shadows brimming with danger. Refusal means returning to your mundane life, and soon after, it will lead to insignificance. You will forget the taste of something greater, and they will stop whispering. Her words hung in the air, a sinister veil draped over the moment. Jeffrey could feel his pulse racing as he weighed the options. It was more than just power. It was destiny, calling out to him with an irresistible allure. Think carefully, she said, the urgency in her voice cutting through the silence. A decision looms, and time slips away quickly in this hour. Choose or lose. He stared at her, heart in throat, knowing that the clock was ticking and fate itself was hanging in the balance. Would he take the plunge, or would fear pull him back to safety? As the shadows grew thicker, a sudden gust of wind slammed the window shut, jolting him from his thoughts. The figure began to shimmer, fading into the murky gloom, but leaving behind the palpable sense of urgency she had instilled in him. Make your choice, Jeffrey. Nightmares await, or power beyond imagination. Her disembodied voice echoed, lingering like smoke in the room that he trembled, caught between the gravity of that choice and the thought of what lay ahead. What was he willing to lose? And with the weight of choice hanging heavily in the air, he could only ask himself, how far was he willing to go to escape his own fate? The answer was just a heartbeat away. Jeffrey's mind raced, each tick of the clock echoing louder in his ears. The shadows were alive around him, twisting and pulsing in rhythm with his convulsing thoughts. How could he trade his essence? What did that even mean? He felt the woman's presence wrap around him, suffocating and intoxicating, draining the life out of his hesitations. Time to decide, Jeffrey. The voice of the woman slithered back into the room, thick like smoke. You have a destiny waiting, or you could fade away, just like the rest. Is there really no other way? He asked, his voice barely above a tremor. He felt something deep inside him cracking, a fragile line between fear and a ravenous need for change. There is always a choice, she replied, her eyes drilling into his with unyielding intensity. But sometimes, the hardest path leads to the most powerful reward. Jeffrey felt his chest tighten. Could he really become something greater, something feared? His vision darted around the room. Books piled high, the dim ambient light only emphasizing the shadows that lingered. The weight of possibility crashed over him. Suddenly, everything he longed for, a life that mattered, where he commanded power instead of serving coffee, was within reach. What do I need to do? He whispered, feeling vulnerability draining from his voice, replaced with a stirring resolve. Meet me at midnight, where the earth touches the forgotten realms, she said, her voice almost melodic, pulling him into a trance. Bring with you the stone of remembrance. Stone of remembrance? He echoed, startled. What is that? A relic hidden deep within you. It's your past, your memories of pain and regret, forged into a tangible part of you. She stepped closer until he could feel the heat radiating from her. You will know it when the moment comes. Without it, the pact is unfathomable. Are you prepared for this journey? His heart raced. Images of jagged rocks and dark woods flashed in his mind. He didn't even know where to start. I'll find it. A smirk tugged at the corners of her lips. Good. The hunger is beginning to fill your spirit. But remember, every step you take toward this power invites the forgotten ones to gaze upon you. They lurk in the dark, and not all share your ambition. The thought sent a shudder down his spine. What if they didn't want him? What if they saw him as nothing more than a meal? And if I fail? He said, almost to himself. Failure isn't an option, she said, her tone shifting dangerously. Insignificance is worse than death. It's a slow decay of the soul. To choose this path means you'll embrace what's coming, or be swept away, just like dust. Her eyes burned with a fervor that unsettled him. Do you want to lead a life of endless mundanity, Jeffrey? Or embrace the chaos awaiting you? Make your choice wisely, but remember, shadows will always clamor for your soul. She began to fade, but the last remnants of her form left an echo in the room, her eyes still piercing, still demanding, as they flickered in and out of visibility, like candle flames about to extinguish. Find the stone, Jeffrey. Time is a relentless foe. The forgotten ones are ever watchful waiting. He stood motionless, heart pounding, adrenaline coiling in his veins. Outside, the wind howled, and he felt a shift in the atmosphere. The moment he stepped back into the world, nothing would ever be the same. That a shiver ran down his spine as the realization hit him. He was diving deeper than he ever imagined, into something dark and alluring. What awaited him in the depths of his soul? Could he truly wield the power if he found the stone? And as he turned to leave, a soft whisper crawled through his mind. What if the gods found him first? The moon hung high, a skeletal light bathing the world in a silvery glow as Jeffrey stepped outside. Each breath was sharp, slicing through the cold air like a knife. He could feel the weight of his decisions bearing down on him. Midnight loomed closer, but it wasn't just the hour that made his heart race. It was the urgency weaving through his veins, igniting a mixture of dread and exhilaration. The streets were eerily quiet, shadows stretching unnaturally in the corners of his vision. He turned left into the alley, instinctively scanning for any signs of life. But life was absent. Only the constricting darkness remained, smothering him. Every scurrying rat echoed like a phantom cry in his mind. What would he encounter tomorrow? Fate or failure? He needed answers, and the stone of remembrance was the key. To Jeffrey's thoughts careened through his childhood memories. Climbing trees, scraped knees, the taste of summer ice cream, all distant echoes of a simpler time. But pain lingered too. The ache of his parents' bitter disappointment, the darkness of sleepless nights spent wrestling with insecurities. It was all buried deep, so far down that even lifting the memories felt like unearthing an ancient curse. He had to find it. Rounding a corner, he hesitated. A flicker darted in the darkness, and instinctively, he held his breath. A figure draped in shadows stood at the threshold of a crumbling building, looking back at him. It was impossibly still, yet a pulse of energy radiated outwards, shattering the stillness. Come. The figure beckoned, voice smooth but edged with a harsher timbre. It was like honey mixed with glass, sweet but cutting. You seek the stone. Jeffrey took a cautious step closer. Who are you? Someone who has glimpsed the depths of the forgotten ones. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a gaunt face, eyes like voids. You seek power. I can help you, for a price. What price? Jeffrey asked, his voice trembling. Everything has a cost, child. The figure smiled, but it sliced through the moment like a blade. Your past will dictate your future. He stared into those dark eyes, the weight of the encounter hitting him. Could he trust this being? Should he divulge the secrets racked in his heart? It was a gamble, but wasn't he everything? I'll do what needs to be done, Jeffrey said, swallowing hard as the fear caught in his throat. What must I sacrifice? Only what you hold dear. The voice lowered, a conspiratorial whisper that crawled into his mind. Embrace the pain. Your regrets will guide you. His heart echoed in his ears, wild and erratic. Pain. What could that mean? He felt the shadows creeping closer, swallowing the light. Was he really ready to unearth what lay dormant inside? The stone of remembrance was not just a relic. It was a Pandora's box waiting to be opened. How do I find it? He pressed, his resolve hardening. The figure nodded, shadows swirling around its form. Deep within the old cemetery, the grave of sorrow holds the answers you crave. A cold rush coursed through Jeffrey's veins. Memories of his past flickered in and out of focus. This was not merely a journey to reclaim his power, but a gritty descent into the abyss. As the figure began to fade, the last remnants of its presence sent tremors rattling through him. Beware the forgotten ones. They feast on the unprepared. Find the stone, Jeffrey, and seal your fate. Heart pounding, he turned to run. Each step echoed in the silence, pulsing with potential. The cemetery awaited him, laden with stones where loss and love intertwined. Would he find the stone? Would it lead him to power, or just deeper into despair? Jeffrey clenched his jaw, determination igniting a fire within. He was stepping into the heart of the unknown. What would the shadows reveal? And who exactly were the forgotten ones? Every twist in the path drew closer, shaping his future. The air grew thick with anticipation. But as he rounded the final corner, what awaited him filled him with a shiver. What truly lay at the grave of sorrow. The graveyard spread out before Jeffrey like a living tapestry of fear and history. The tombstones stood like sentinels, their worn faces telling stories that had long since slipped into forgotten whispers. A chill wrapped around him, threading through his body like pale fingers, gripping his spine. He had felt fear before, but this was something raw and primal, something that clawed at his chest with icy nails. The moon's light flickered over the weathered stones, casting elongated shadows that twisted into grotesque shapes. Jeffrey hesitated, heart thundering in his ears. The grave of sorrow, he murmured, trying to anchor himself. His breath clouded in the air, each exhale echoing in the stillness. He stepped forward, compelled yet terrified. As he moved deeper into the cemetery, a rustle stirred in the depths of the weeds. Laughter? Or was it a shiver of despair? He felt it prick at his skin, an electric sensation that flowed down his arms. Focus, he commanded himself, shaking away the creeping darkness that threatened to swallow him. Ahead, a particularly large grave loomed. The inscription was weathered but still legible. Here lies the keeper of sorrow. A predatory thrill shot through him. Something about this grave pulsed with a life of its own, a heartbeat echoing against his own frantic pulse. Was this the stone he sought? Wrapping his fingers around the cold, jagged edge of the tombstone, he pushed. The earth began to tremble, and he recoiled as the ground groaned and shifted beneath him. A hollow sound reverberated, resonating like a warning bell in his mind. Panic gripped him. What if he was unearthing more than just memories? Sunken eyes materialized in the shadows behind him, unblinking and unyielding. The forgotten ones. They were here, watching him with a hunger that gnawed at his soul. His stomach tightened, and he twisted around, desperation flooding in. But the shadows shifted, coalescing into a shape, a figure cloaked in darkness, familiar yet alien. What have you disturbed? It whispered, voice slicing through the night air. Show yourself, Jeffrey demanded, trying to sound braver than he felt. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a face that was hauntingly familiar. It was his younger self, eyes bright with dreams that had long since faded. This is a place of reckoning, Jeff. It's where all your choices have led. What? No, this can't be. His mind reeled. Was he caught in a twisted dream? I came for the stone. The stone comes at a cost more serious than any you envision. You must confront your regrets. You must embrace your failures. Jeffrey's breath hitched. The memories flooded him, his parents' disappointment, friends lost in shame, paths he had chosen out of fear. Each one carried weight. Each one felt like a heavy stone on his heart. I can't. I don't want to. Then you will find no power, the apparition said, its voice echoing in the silence of the night, laced with bitterness. Only shadows will welcome you. Heart racing, Jeffrey turned back to the gravestone, as if it might offer guidance. The earth was trembling, as if resonating with his turmoil. What do I have to do? He shouted into the darkness, pleading with the shadows. Answers danced at the edges of his consciousness. Face who you are. The figure of his past surged forward, merging with the shadows. Give in to that pain. Only then will the stone reveal itself. A shudder coursed through him, like cold water pouring down his spine. He would have to face the things he had locked away, unlonged truths that felt like chains dragging him down. The fear of uncovering those layered regrets threatened to smother him. Suddenly, laughter echoed in the air, chaotic and ravenous. The forgotten ones were circling, insatiable. The night thickened with their presence, shadows coiling around Jeffrey in a wicked dance. His mind screamed. Were they drawn not just to his fears, but to the power that lay waiting? What if I refuse? He shouted, though the words felt weak in the thick atmosphere. Then you will never know what you could become. The ground shuddered, and Jeffrey realized the stone was not just in the earth under the grave. It was within him, buried beneath the weight of sorrow he had never acknowledged. Each breath felt like a step closer, yet further into darkness. Find your sacrifice, Jeffrey. The forgotten ones are watching, and soon the time will come when you must decide. His spine tingled with looming dread. The shadows tightened, and his past reached for him, intertwining with his very soul. With one final look at the lurking figure of his younger self, Jeffrey understood. The grave of sorrow was just the beginning not just of his descent, but of a revelation that he feared would tear him apart. What lay before him was undefined, waiting to unfold. Would he pull the lid off Pandora's box? Would he have to fight the darkest parts of himself? As he moved toward the gaping maw of destiny, uncertainty engulfed him. Yet one question lingered like smoke in the night. Was he brave enough to confront the shadows of his own making? The shadows flickered, their whispers curling around Jeffrey like smoke. He was frozen, caught in a web spun of his own design. The laughter of the forgotten ones rippled through the graveyard, sending a tremor down his spine. Each face from his past twisted in his mind voices he wished he could forget, moments he longed to erase. But now, they were all here, waiting for him to take action, demanding recognition. Face your failures. The echo of his younger self pierced the charged air, more in order than a suggestion. The moment seemed to stretch, and he could feel the weight of every decision pressing against him like a tidal wave, ready to crash. He took a shaky breath, heart racing. The truth lay hidden in the depths of his shame. He knew it. Jeffrey sensed the rippling power of the stone deep within him, an urge to reach out and seize it. But at what cost? Would you rather remain a prisoner of your regret? The figure asked, its shadows swirling ominously. The eyes of his past self glowed with a painful desperation. Let it all out, Jeff. It will set you free. The laughter swelled, spiraling around him, taunting. What are you afraid of? It hissed, pulling him closer to the edge of despair. They won't judge you any more than you already do. You must relinquish your pain to take hold of the stone. A sharp pulse of anger ignited within him. I don't want your pity, he shouted, but the words felt hollow, empty. What was holding him back? Fear? Shame? Or the knowledge that to confront his dark corners meant embracing a part of himself he had buried deep? Suddenly, the earth beneath him quaked violently, the shadows laughing and leaping, as if relishing his torment. He staggered, panic rising in his throat. No, I won't let you control me. Then you will lose everything. The voice from the shadows resonated, eerily calm. You have just moments left to choose. Jeffrey's heart throbbed, pounding against the walls of his chest. He felt each regret like a chain linked to his soul. The truth wound like a serpent around his thoughts. He didn't merely fear the shadows. He feared the light they brought with them. The weight could liberate him, but facing it meant unearthing the buried parts of himself, the remnants of failed hopes and lost dreams. The figure approached, gliding smoothly through the shadows. It bore an uncanny resemblance to someone he had lost, a friend who had once meant everything to him. Jeff, don't let them keep you from who you were meant to be. You have power, but you must claim it. The weight of the words fell on him like lead. Power, yes, but not without a price. The weight of his past held him down. What sacrifices had he made to survive? Let go, Jeffrey. Let us in. The haunting plea resonated, laced with longing. He felt the crowd of shadows pressing him, whispering seductive promises. Night began to suffocate him, aware that every breath he took was weighted with consequence. Make your choice. In that moment, a spark of defiance ignited. The shadows didn't command him. They were fragments of his own existence, echoes of himself and his pain. He was not powerless. He could face them. What if he could emerge from this? What if acceptance turned the darkness into something more? Taking a long, shuddering breath, he lowered his head, steadying himself. I won't run from you anymore, he yelled, pulling forth the remnants of his past, as if wielding a sword. The shadows stilled, morphing into shapes he recognized. Then join us, they murmured, the cacophony threading into a singular vision, pulling him deeper. Unlock what lies within you. The stone awaits. This was it. He was on the brink, teetering between darkness and revelation. But was he truly prepared to storm through the fortress built of his own fears? As the shadows lunged forward, he braced himself to be consumed. Would the truth finally reveal itself, or would it devour him whole? Jeffrey took a step forward, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. With his heart racing, he whispered to the night, I am ready, but was he? The question pierced the air, echoing with thoughts left unspoken. He had to make a choice, and the weight of it was heavier than anything he had ever felt. Just as he crossed the threshold, a voice from the darkness called out, what if it wasn't just your regrets buried in the grave? What if the truth was darker than you could imagine? The shadows surged around him, a treacherous ocean, and Jeffrey had no idea what awaited him on the other side. The darkness enveloped him, a suffocating blanket that hummed with an intensity of the unseen. Jeffrey felt like he was slipping from reality, as if the graveyard had opened up beneath his feet, consuming him whole. It was a kaleidoscope of his past flickering like a film reel, colors vying for attention, sharp and vivid, yet dulled by the overwhelming fear that danced through him. "Join us," they whispered again, their voices merging into a haunting symphony. He squinted and saw fragments the faces of those he loved, faces twisted in anguish and failure. They hovered just beyond his reach, their eyes pleading. "You think you can walk away?" A voice echoed, sinister and familiar. It was his old self, the one who chased after dreams while ignoring the cost, who laughed at the price of ambition. "You've lost before, Jeff. You thought you could run, but you can't escape the truth." "Shut up," he hissed, anger flaring like a flame. "I can't keep listening to you." But every flicker of doubt ignited another wave of regret. It washed over him, raw and relentless. The shadows morphed, reflecting his fears, memories playing out like a macabre theater. Lost projects, friendships torn apart, decisions that haunted him like ghosts, each one speaking volumes, each more torturous than the last. "Claim your power," one shadow exclaimed, its form darting away. It won't wait forever. Then, something shifted. A force outside of him seemed to pull, a pull that shifted from his regrets to the strength of his resolve. Maybe, just maybe, he could confront this vortex of despair. The thought made adrenaline surge through his veins. The urge to remember what it felt like to believe in himself crackled in the air. With a scream, he thrust his hands forward, reaching for the stone that lay just out of grasp, the promise of light glimmering like a distant star. As if sensing his intention, the shadows screeched in disarray, dancing away from him, recoiling from the surge of courage that rose within him. "I know you," he shouted against the rising chaos. "You are part of me. You don't scare me." Each word he shouted sliced through the darkness, and the shadows flickered, their laughter faltering. For every breath he took, he could feel the chains that bound him shatter just a little more. "In your heart, you are just like us." The voice of a forgotten enemy taunted him, sharpened with malice. "Do you really think you can wield that power? I don't need to be like you," Jeffrey cried, grounding himself. "I can forge my own path." The shadows recoiled, swirling in fury, their grip loosening around him. He felt the pulse of something ancient and strong thumping beneath the stone, resonating with the rising tide of his own heart. "Fear is a choice, isn't it?" he murmured to himself. But what about courage? The faces of his past whispered thoughts of encouragement. That familiar friend glimmered before him, holding open a door to salvation he thought he would never see again. This was a moment to reclaim not just who he was, but who he could become. But in the frenzy, a sudden realization shot through him. What if the truths he was about to unearth would be darker than he could ever imagine? What if this moment was just the beginning of something infinitely worse? As he reached out to seize the stone, a cold gust of wind birthed a new voice, low and rumbling, emerging from the shadows with an icy clarity. "You think your heart can handle the truth? When you awaken the god of regrets, they won't kneel before you. You will kneel before them." Jeffrey felt a jolt as icy fingers clawed at his consciousness. Panic rammed into him as he hesitated. The shadows writhed, sensing his uncertainty. Could he truly face what lay beyond the veil? Would the stone bring him liberation or damnation? Jeffrey had to decide. The shadows darkened, swelling like an approaching storm. As the choice loomed, a haunting whisper floated through the air. What if you lose not only yourself, but the last glimmers of hope? The shadows surged forward, and Jeffrey knew one thing for certain. The real battle was just beginning. The shadows pulsed and shrieked, twisting around him. Jeffrey felt their cold breath on his skin, his heart thundering in his chest. The stone glimmered, a beacon against the oppressive darkness, but that voice had haunted him. Did he truly believe he could wield such power? "Do it, Jeff?" A new voice erupted from underneath the chaos. It was a voice of reason, his late wife, Karen. Her smile flashed across his memory, warm and inviting. "You have the strength. Remember why you started." "Karen?" he cried, searching the murky forms surrounding him for a sign of her. But all he saw were shadows, more grotesque than ever. "You're gone. You can't be here." "But I am, Jeffrey. I never left." The shadowy figures howled, drowning out her soothing tones, trying to pull him back into their seductive grasp. "Lies, lies," they screeched, becoming a cacophony of his worst fears, his deepest regrets. "You are destined for darkness, like the rest of us." "No," he shouted, shaking his head violently, clutching his temples as if the motion could clear his mind. "I don't want to lose any more. I don't want to be trapped like this." In that moment, he felt the warmth of his wife's presence envelop him, as if she had wrapped her spirit around him. It offered him a grounding force that rooted him in reality, even if that reality was shifting beneath him. "You can break free, Jeff. You must summon the courage to claim what's yours." Regaining his bearings, he fixed his gaze on the stone, its ethereal glow sharper than ever. "What if I'm wrong?" he whispered, doubt creeping in again. "The price of fear is far greater than the price of courage," Karen's voice echoed in his mind. "You have to choose, and you can't allow the shadows to write your story." With each word, Jeffrey felt renewed determination swell inside him. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, urging him to act. He took a deep breath and pushed through the oppressive fog, voice steady. "I'm done living in your shadows. I will embrace my power." In a furious surge, he lunged for the stone, hands outstretched. As his fingers made contact, a blinding light erupted, illuminating the darkness like a morning sun breaking through a stormy sky. The shadows howled in agony, retreating like water against a tide. "What have you done?" The malicious voice screeched, its echo twisting with fury. "I'm claiming my truth," Jeffrey declared, his voice resonating with newfound strength. "I'm no longer afraid." The power surged through him, and he felt a flood of memories, triumphs, laughter, the love of those he'd lost, all aligning, giving him a sense of clarity amid chaos. But then the ground trembled, a violent quake that sent shockwaves through the air. The stone vibrated wildly in his hands, its light fluctuating like a dying flame. "What is happening?" he gasped, the realization crashing over him like a wave of ice. "By uncovering the truth, you've awakened something deeper," a whisper, dark and powerful, curled around his consciousness. "You don't just wield power, Jeffrey. You've set the god of regrets free." Everything around him shifted. The shadows transformed, morphing into looming figures that shifted and swirled, gathering strength from the chaos. Jeffrey's pulse quickened as dread seeped in. "What have I done?" he muttered, eyes wide with horror. The darkness coalesced, forming entities that towered above him, their eyes glowing with malice. "Welcome, brave soul," one of them purred, voice dripping with poison. "Now you'll learn just how heavy the burden of truth can be." Jeffrey staggered back, the weight of his choices crashing down on him. He gripped the stone tighter, understanding that the real struggle had just begun. Could he conquer these ancient adversaries lurking in the shadows, or would he once again be swallowed whole? And as that chilling question echoed in his mind, he knew one thing for sure: the battle for his soul was far from over. The air crackled with tension as Jeffrey faced the looming shadows, their forms shifting ominously. Each one pulsed with dark energy, like a storm ready to unleash chaos. He felt the weight of the stone in his hands, grounding him, but the malice raining down from these figures made it hard to breathe. "Do you truly think you can stand against us?" A figure sneered, its voice dripping with scorn. "You've unleashed your regrets, and they've brought us back." His heart raced. "This isn't over yet. Regrets are not my masters," he shouted, trying to still the tremor in his voice. He envisioned Karen smiling at him, encouraging him. But as quickly as that thought surfaced, it was swallowed by the shadow's twisted taunts. "You have awakened ancient forces," another shadow hissed, its voice like cold gravel. "For every truth, there are consequences." Jeffrey clenched his jaw. The shadows loomed closer, encroaching on him like a chilling fog. He could feel their grips attempting to pull at the dark corners of his mind, digging in deep to the pain he thought he had buried. Memories flickered through his consciousness: loss, failures, moments of regret. The shadows were feeding on them, twisting them into something grotesque. With all he had, Jeffrey began to scream, a primal howl that shattered the suffocating grip of despair. "I will not be defined by you. You don't own me." Summoning the light from the stone, he thrust it forward, blinding beams piercing through the fog. The light created a path through the darkness, and for a moment, the shadows drew back, howling in agony. But their screams morphed into laughter, cruel and mocking. You think a mere flicker of hope can banish us? You are alone, Jeffrey. Those you cherish are gone, and we are forever. With that, a haunting sensation filled the air, a sudden chill that raced up his spine. Jeffrey's breath came out in rapid bursts. Just as the laughter circled his senses, he saw a flicker of movement behind the shadows. A glimmer of light, flickering like a candle, pulsated from the depths of their gathering mass. Stand firm. Karen's voice called out once more, echoing in his heart. You must confront them, not with the stone alone, but with your will. Gritting his teeth, Jeffrey suddenly recalled the moments of hope he had seized a day at the park, smiles with Karen, the warmth of their shared laughter. The memories surged back, filling him with power, filling this endless night with piercing light. Each sentiment grew brighter, pushing against the darkness. Remember your joys, your loves. He roared into the void, the stone warming in his grip, shining brighter than ever. You can't take them away from me. The shadows shrieked with each word, recoiling as if they were physically struck. Jeffrey pushed forward, the light expanding into a blinding sphere, breaking through the shadowy figure's malicious facade. He could feel their strength weakening, cracking under the weight of his resolve. But just as the feeling of victory surged, a tremor coursed through the ground again. The stone pulsed wildly, and the shadows began to draw back together, forming something larger. Jeffrey watched in horror as their union created a towering entity, darker and more terrifying than he had seen before, a grotesque representation of despair and regret manifesting before him. No, he gasped, the shadows now swirling into one formidable opponent, towering over him like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Welcome to the depths of your own making, it rumbled, voice deep and resonant, as if echoing from the bowels of the earth itself. Will you fight, little man, or will you kneel? As the words reverberated through him, Jeffrey felt something shift inside. It was as if the weight of his choices had transformed into a different kind of power, the explosive drive of a reckoning. But could he stand against the embodiment of his deepest fears? With raw energy pulsing at his core, Jeffrey took a step forward. The entity loomed, fearsome and massive. He could feel its eyes, every mistake, every loss watching him, waiting for him to falter. In that heartbeat, he knew the true battle was only beginning. Could courage conquer despair, or would he succumb to the shadows? And deep in the darkness, a whisper curled around him, sinister yet alluring. Your choice is only the first step as you awaken the darker gods. The air thrummed with electric intensity. The shadows howled like a tempest, swirling around Jeffrey, a chaotic dance that threatened to swallow him whole. The towering figure loomed, an avatar of despair crafted from all his regrets, each jagged line a scar etched into his soul. Face your darkness, truth-seeker, the entity drawled, mockingly. Will you stand or submit? You're out of time. The reminders of his past clawed at him, every mistake, every failure, each one wrapping around him tighter than a vice. But amid the storm of regret, a flicker ignited within him. It blossomed into flame, fueled by the memories of love he had known, those moments spent laughing with Karen, the fleeting joy of sunsets shared, the warmth of her hand in his. They surged up, battling against the tide that threatened to drown him. No, Jeffrey shouted, clenching his fists around the stone. I will not kneel before you. I am more than my mistakes. Every ounce of will he possessed poured into those words, sending shockwaves through the ethereal threads of despair that I in that heartbeat. The shadows recoiled, hesitating, and the light within him surged brighter. He harnessed it, allowing it to spill forth like a tidal wave, challenging the suffocating darkness. It broke against the swirling mass, illuminating the suffocating shadows in a radiance that sliced through the malice. See your regrets for what they truly are, he bellowed. They won't define me anymore. With each pulse of light that emanated from him, he confronted the truth he'd buried, the vulnerability, the pain, the history of his life that shaped him into who he was now. Each truth burned hotter, blazing away the darkness like a cleansing flame. The entity, relentless, reformed itself, twisting and pouring its energy into a more grotesque shape. Foolish mortal, You think you can banish me with memories? You think you can wield power when you can barely contain light? The shadows surged forward, but Jeffrey, no longer bound by fear, thrust the stone out ahead of him with primal determination. The warm glow intensified, radiating purity, and manifested barriers of light that began to hold the darkness at bay. Your power is built on fear, and fear is a weight I no longer carry. He roared, stepping forward, breaking through the threshold of doubt. He realized then that strength lay not merely in the power he could wield, but in the acceptance of his journey, the failures and the triumphs. With each acknowledgement, the shadows shrieked louder, thrashing against the barriers. You don't understand. We are what makes you human. Your pain is your power. The forgotten ones crave what you hide. But he could see clearly now, a perspective sharpened by love lost, but never forgotten. No, you're my past, not my future. His words cut through the oppressive fog that surrounded him. Jeffrey took a deep breath, filled with warmth and conviction, and focused on all the beauty he had once experienced. I embrace my regrets as part of my story, he declared, eyes locked with the entity. I want to run, I'll grow. The shadows screeched, writhing against the growing light, but Jeffrey pressed on, every word a metaphorical sword in his grasp. I choose courage. I choose to rise above. The forgotten ones will kneel before me. Their shackles bind me. With one final surge of energy, he thrust the stone forward as light burst from him, washing over the dark entity. It exploded in a cascade of shadows, dissolving into the ether, the power lost to the void. The silence that followed was deafening, the remnants of darkness flickering away into nothingness. As the night shimmered back into focus, Jeffrey stood there, breathless. He had faced his deepest fears and emerged victorious. The fog that enveloped him lifted, revealing the twinkling stars above like diamonds in a velvet sky. He felt lighter, unshackled from the chains that once bound him. In that moment of calm, Karen's voice echoed in his heart. You are not defined by your regrets, Jeffrey. You are free to rise. He gazed into the cosmos, feeling the weight of power thrumming at his fingertips. Unfettered, he realized he could use this power, change his reality, and let go of everything that had once gripped him with fear. The gods had whispered their secrets, and now they would bow to him. His gaze sharpened with budding resolve. Jeffrey had chosen his fate. The darkness that sought to ruin him had been conquered. But he understood this was just the beginning. The true essence of power lay within him, wrapped in scars yet unforgotten. With newfound strength, he whispered to the night, "This is my story, and I write the ending." And with that affirmation, Jeffrey took a step forward, ready to embrace whatever awaited him beyond the horizon. As the dawn broke, light spilled across the sky, illuminating a fresh path ahead, one painted with resilience and hope. What had once threatened to consume him had transformed into a force he would wield moving forward. All that remained now was to venture into the world and shape his legacy. Don't miss the chance to follow Jeffrey's journey. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you won't miss our next exclusive stories where the adventure continues. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. I want to hear your thoughts. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful confronting your fears can be. Your engagement makes a difference, and it's time to spread the word.